Testing. Hey. Hey, Mrs. Bauer here. It's good to be by you today on this Thursday, April 30th, on day 17,454 of social distancing. Just kidding. Not that long. It just seems that long. All right. Today we're here to chapters 20 and 21 of Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. For those of you that are following along, we're on page 106. All right, here we go. Twice a week, the results of the state basketball tournament were posted on the plywood roadrunner in the courtyard. The surviving teams were into the sectionals now. Then would come the regionals. And then, with only 2 teams left, the big show, the Arizona State Championship. Glendale, the team we had lost to, got bitter, masochistic attention on the roadrunner with scores and foot-high numerals as they continued to win and move through the tournament. Meanwhile, Stargirl was involved in a tournament of her own, the oratorical contest. As Micah High's winner, she qualified for the district talk-off, as the Times called it. It took place in the auditorium of Red Rock High School, and lo and behold, Stargirl won that too. Next up was the state finals in Phoenix on the 3rd Friday in April. In my homeroom, when the announcement came over the PA about Stargirl winning the district title, I was about to let out a cheer, but I caught myself. Several people booed. Getting ready for the finals, Stargirl practiced on me. Most often, we went into the desert. She did not use notes, nor did her words seem memorized. Each time she gave the speech, it was different. She seemed to insert new material as it popped into her head. She matched her words so perfectly that the speech was not speech at all, but one creature's voice in the wild, as natural as a raven's caw or a coyote's howl at midnight. I sat cross-legged on the ground. Cinnamon sat on me. We listened in rapture, and so I half believed did the tumbleweed and cacti, the desert, and the mountains, all listening to the girl with the long falling skirt. What a shame, I thought, to pack her performance into a schedule and present it to rows of plush black back seats in an auditorium. Once, incredibly, an elf owl landed atop a saguaro not 10 feet from where she was speaking. It paused for a full minute before ducking into its hole. Of course, we did other things too. We walked, we talked, we rode bikes. Though I had my driver's license, I bought a cheap secondhand bicycle so I could ride with her. Sometimes she led the way, sometimes I did. Whenever we could, we rode side by side. She was bendable light. She shone around every corner of my day. She taught me to revel. She taught me to wonder. She taught me to laugh. My sense of humor had always measured up to everyone else's, but timid, introverted me, I showed it sparingly. I was a smiler in her presence. I threw back my head and laughed out loud for the first time in my life. She saw things I had not known there was so much to see. She was forever tugging my arm and saying, "Look." I would look around seeing nothing. "Where?" And she would point, "There." In the beginning, I still could not see. She might be pointing to a doorway or a person or the sky, but such things were so common to my eyes, so undistinguished, that they would register as nothing. I walked in a gray world of nothings. So she would stop and point out that front door of the house we were passing was blue, and that the last time we had passed it, it had been green, and that as near as she could tell, someone who lived in that house painted the front door a different color several times a year. Or she would whisper to me that the old man sitting alone on the bench at the Tudor Village shopping center was holding his hearing aid in his hand, and he was smiling. And he wore a coat and tie as if he were going somewhere special. and pinned onto his lapel was a tiny American flag. Or she would kneel down and pull me down with her and show me the ants. 2 of them, lugging the lopped leg of a beetle 20 times their size across the walk. As might 2 men, were they strong as ants carrying a full-grown tree from one end of the town to the other. After a while, I began to see better. When she said, "Look," and I followed her pointing finger, I saw. Eventually, it became a contest. Who would see first? When I finally did see it, said, "Look," and pointed and tugged her sleeve, I was as proud as a first grader with a star on his paper. And there was more to her seeing than that. What she saw, she felt. Her eyes went straight to her heart. The old man on the bench, for example, made her cry. The lumberjack ants made her laugh. The door of many colors put her in such a snit of curiosity that I had to drag her away. She felt she could not proceed with her life until she knocked on such a door. She told me how she would run the Micah Times if she were an editor. Crime would be on page 10. Ants and old men and painted doors on page 1. She made up headlines. Ants haul monster load across vast barren walk. Mystery smile. Old man nods off at Tudor Village. Door begs. Knock me. I told her I wanted to be a TV director. She said she wanted to be a silver lunch truck driver. Huh, I said. You know, she said, people work all morning and then it's 12 o'clock. The secretaries in the offices walk out the door. The construction workers put down their hard hats and hammers, and everybody's hungry and they look up and there I am. No matter where they are, no matter where they work, I'm there. I have a whole fleet of silver lunch trucks. They go everywhere. Let lunch come to you. That's my slogan. Just seeing my silver lunch truck makes them happy. She described how she would roll up the side panels and everyone would practically faint at the cloud of wonderful smells. Hot food, cold food, Chinese, Italian, you name it, even a salad bar. They can't believe how much food I fit into my truck. No matter where you are, out in the desert, the mountains, even down in the mines, if you want my silver lunch service, I get it to you. I find a way. I tagged along on missions. One day, she bought a small plant, an African violet in a plastic pot on sale for 99 cents at a drugstore. Who's it for? I asked her. I'm not exactly sure, she said. I just know that someone at an address on Marion Drive is in the hospital for surgery. So I thought whoever's back home could use a little cheering up. How do you know this stuff? I said. She gave me a mischievous grin. I have my ways. We went to the house on Marion Drive. She reached into the saddle pack behind her bicycle seat. She pulled out a handful of ribbons. She chose a pale violet one that matched the color of the tiny blossoms and stuffed the remaining ribbons back into the seat pack. She tied the violet ribbon around the pot. I held her bike while she set the plant by the front door. Riding away, I said, "Why don't you leave a card or something with your name on it?" The question surprised her. Why should I? Her question surprised me. Well, I don't know. It's just the way people do things. They expect it. They get a gift. They expect to know where it came from. Is that important? Yeah, I guess. I never finished that thought. My tires shuddered as I slammed my bike to a halt. She stopped ahead of me. She backed up. She stared. Leo, what is it? I wagged my head. I grinned. I pointed to her. It was you. Me what? 2 years ago, my birthday. I found a package on my doorstep, my front step, a porcupine necktie. I never found out who gave it to me. She walked her bike alongside mine. She grinned. A mystery. Where did you find it? I said. I didn't. I had my mother make it. She didn't seem to want to dwell on the subject. She started pedaling and we continued on our way. Where were we? She said. Getting credit, I said. What about it? Well, it's nice to get credit. The spokes of her rear wheel spun behind the curtain of her long skirt. She looked like a photograph from 100 years ago. She turned her wide eyes on me. Is it? She said. Chapter 21. On weekends and after dinner, we delivered many potted violets and congratulations balloons and cards of many sentiments. She made her own cards. She wasn't a great artist. Her people were stick figures. The girls all had triangle skirts and little pigtails, and you would never mistake one of her cards for a Hallmark. But I have never seen cards more heartfelt. They were meaningful in the way that a school child's homemade Christmas card is meaningful. She never left her name. But finally, after much pestering from me, she did tell me how she knew what was going on in people's lives. It was simple, she said. She read the daily paper. Not the headlines or the front page or the sports page or the comics or the TV listings or the Hollywood gossip. What she read were the parts that most people ignored, the parts without headlines and pictures. The boondocks of the paper, the hospital admissions, the death notices, the birthday and wedding announcements, the police blotter, the coming events calendar, and most of all, she read the fillers. I love fillers, she exclaimed. What are fillers? I said. She explained that fillers are little items that are not considered important enough to be a story or to have a headline. They're never more than 1 column wide, never more than an inch or 2 deep. They are most commonly found at the bottoms of inside pages where the eye seldom travels. If the editors had their way, they would never use fillers. But sometimes a reporter doesn't write quite enough words, and the story doesn't reach all the way to the bottom of the page. The paper can't have a blank space there, so the editor dumps in a filler. A filler doesn't need to be news. It doesn't need to be important. It doesn't even need to be read. All it's asked to do is take up space. A filler might come from anywhere and be about anything. It might tell how many pounds of rice a typical Chinese person eats in a lifetime, or say something about beetles in Sumatra. Or the filler might come from down the street. It might mention that so-and-so's cat is missing, or that so-and-so has a collection of antique marbles. I searched through fillers like a prospector digging for gold, she said. So that's it, I said. You read the papers. No, she said, that's not all. There's also the place where I get my hair cut. I always overhear good stuff there. And of course, there's the bulletin boards. Do you know how many bulletin boards there are in town? Sure, I said facetiously. I count them every day. So do I, she said, not kidding. So far, I'm up to 41. Offhand, I couldn't think of one except the plywood roadrunner at school. What do you mean, learn from the bulletin boards? Oh, well, somebody just opened a business, somebody lost a dog, somebody needs a companion. Who advertises for a companion? Who needs one that bad? Lonely people, she said. Old people, just somebody to sit with them for a while. I pictured Stargirl sitting in a dark room with an old woman. I couldn't picture myself doing the same thing. Sometimes she seemed so far from me. We were passing a pizza. There's a bulletin board in there, she said. It was just inside the door. It was smothered with business cards and notices. I pointed to one that said, Odd jobs, ask for Mike. Call this number. So what's that tell you? I said with more challenges in my voice than I intended. She read it. Well, It could be that Mike lost his regular job and can't find another, so he's hiring himself out. Or, even if he has a regular job, it's not enough to make ends meet. He's either not very neat or he can't afford a whole piece of paper. This is just a scrap. So, what would you do for him? I said. Oh, I don't know. My parents might have an odd job they need done, or maybe I do. Or maybe I could just send him a card. Well, what kind of a card would he get? A keep your chin up card, she poked me. Hey, you want to play a card game? I had a feeling she wasn't talking about poker. Sure, I said. She said she invented it. All you need is your eyes and one other person. I pick somebody on the street, the mall, a store, wherever, and I follow them. Say it's a her. I follow her for 15 minutes, not a minute more. I time myself. The game is, after 15 minutes of watching her, I have to guess what kind of card she needs. But how can you get it to her? I said. You don't know where she lives. Well, true. That's as far as it goes. That's why it's just a game. It's just for fun. She snuggled into me. She whispered in my ear, let's play. I said, sure. She said we needed a mall. I usually steered us away from the Micah Mall. Too many silent treatment MAHS kids hanging around there. We drove 10 miles to the Redstone Mall. It was a Saturday afternoon. We picked out a woman, a lime green skort, white sandals. We guessed her age was early 40s. She was buying a salted pretzel at Auntie Anne's. She carried the pretzel in a little white paper bag. We followed her into Suncoast Video. We overheard her ask for the movie When Harry Met Sally. They didn't have it. She passed Sonoma, then came back and went in. She wandered about, touching pottery with one fingertip, feeling surfaces. She stopped before the dinner plates. She lifted one with a French cafe painted on it. Van Gogh, Stargirl whispered. The lady seemed to think about the plate, even closed her eyes, holding it to her chest with both hands, as if feeling vibrations. But then she put it back and walked out. On to Sears, lingerie, bedclothes. I was uneasy, spying from behind a rack of frilly somethings. She was flipping through nightshirts when time ran out. Stargirl and I conferred in the corridor. Okay, she said, what do you think? I think I feel like a stalker, I said. A good stalker, she said. You first. Well, she's divorced and lonely. No wedding ring. Wants somebody in her life. A home life. She wishes she were Sally and her Harry would come along. She would make him dinner and snuggle with him at night. She tries to eat low-fat foods. She works for a travel agency. She took a free cruise last year, but all she met on the boat were creeps. Her name is Clarissa, and she played the clarinet in high school, and her favorite soap is Irish Spring. I boggled. How do you know all that? She laughed. I don't. I'm guessing. That's what makes it so fun. So, what card would you send her? She put her fingertips to her lips. To Clarissa, I would send a, while you're waiting for Harry, be good to yourself card. How about you? I would send I mulled over the phrasing. Don't let Harry catch you flicking card. Now it was her turn to boggle, huh? Didn't you see her pick her nose? I said. In Suncoast? Not really. I saw her hand go to her nose like she was scratching it or something. Yeah, or something. She was picking, that's what. She was quick and sneaky. A real pro. She gave me a playful shove. You're kidding. I held up my hands. Man, I'm serious. She was standing in front of the comedies and her finger just went in. And when it came out, there was something on it. She carried it around for about a minute. And then just as she was leaving Suncoast, when she thought nobody was looking, she flicked. I didn't see where it landed. She stared at me. I raised my right hand and put my left over my heart. No lie. She broke out laughing so loudly I was embarrassed. She grabbed my arm with both hands to keep from collapsing. Millwalker stared. We carded 2 others that day. A woman who spent her whole 15 minutes feeling leather jackets. We called her Betty. And a man we called Adam because of his huge Adam's apple, which we renamed Adam's pumpkin. No more pick and flickers. And I did have fun. Whether it came from the game or simply from being with her, I don't know. I do know I was surprised at how close I felt to Clarissa and Betty and Adam after watching them for only 15 minutes. Throughout the day, Stargirl had been dropping money. She was the Johnny Appleseed of loose change. A penny here, a nickel there, tossed to the sidewalk, laid on a shelf or a bench, even quarters. I hate change, she said. It's so jangly. Do you realize how much you must throw away in a year? I said. But did you ever see a little kid's face when he spots a penny on a sidewalk? She said. When her change purse was empty, we drove back to Micah. Along the way, she invited me to dinner at her house. And that's the end of chapter 21. So what do you think, guys? I hope you're liking the story. I'll be back on Tuesday to read another few chapters of Stargirl. Please check your jpschools.org for more information about schools and what's going on. Think about the characters. I miss you guys. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, and don't forget to wash your hands. Bye.